到吗？晚得到吗？
可以上，上了，我带你上。开始，他上来，
我也想刷。
太猛了，我这个 TP 也太猛了。算他，运气好。他手下去太猛了。我今晚握的没事。有人说也有办法，有人说我们这种最炫的手表，我不送我感觉也是不了，是吧？那先不送啊，那就送一下。没送，这其他怎么玩？我也送。没有，我们应该就等龙了，我们推不了，太恶心了。就等龙他们过来玩，
应该推得到，我觉得应该推得到。怎么推啊？
You just heard Suning's comms when they were up against G2 in our Sounds of the Game presented by Bose. I love the advice there from Angel at the end. Advice we can all live by. Just don't int. If you're thinking about playing bad, play better. That's how you're going to win some League of Legends. Or you could step up the way that we saw JDG step up in that first game. It was a close battle, but they are up 1-0 here so far in this series.
Exactly. And something I wanted to talk about, going into this game is we highlighted the top laners a lot. The analyst desk highlighted the top laners a lot. But something that a lot of fans who don't follow the LPL might not realize is that traditionally the LPL has really heavily imported their top laners. When you think of, LPL World Champions, you think of top laners like the Shy, like Khan, like Gimgoon, even guys like Duke have been imported. And, in the past, the Chinese top laners were more like role players, guys like Zatai and Core One and Let Me. And now we have this kind of new era of these young Chinese top laners in the LPL who are so damn good. You have guys like Bin and Zoom and 369, all incredibly good, all native to the region. It is something that the LPL is incredibly excited about, is the fostering of their talent and this new wave of players coming up and kind of representing the growth of that talent in a region that's already so damn good is something that is very frightening for the rest of the world.
And I'm sure both these top laners will continue to have large roles to play as we move forward in this series, as is indicated by the fact that once more, both teams will be banning top laners as their first bans Ornn and Camille. For everybody who might be curious, Suning does have side selection this game because loser gets side selection. Suning elected to play on blue side again. Their bans will be the same as they were in game number 1 with Ornn, TF, and Lucian. Nidalee, Syndra, and Camille banned off on the other side. And so far, we're running it back, Mr. Azael. It's Graves first pick, blue side, Renekton, Lillia, red.
So honestly, I don't mind this as long as you're changing your support pick. I actually thought that Suning had a great draft. I think they played the game individually very well. Yes, there were some mistakes here and there on both sides, but overall, I think Suning played great. They just were playing a little bit, I think, on hard mode. When you don't have hard engaged to actually, give someone for the Galio to jump in on, you don't have that extra CC for lockdown for huanfeng to get a really good ultimate. So, I don't mind some of the picks going a similar way. They may already be changing it up, moving towards that Zoe. If you don't want to go towards hard engage, this makes a lot more sense. So they're kind of taking the other side of it now. They're the ones grabbing the Jhin as well as the Zoe, pairing it alongside the Graves. So snatching some of those picks away from JDG that they used so effectively last game.
Right. We're still seeing 5 champions that were picked in game number 1, but 2 of those now switching sides with Yagao and LokeN's picks from the previous match going over to Suning. Now, how is JDG going to adapt to this? All right, they're saying, fine. You want to trade? We're going to trade.
But you had the right champion. You just sucked at it. Let me show you.
Let me teach you the ways.
This is how you play Galio.
Well, they'll have a Renekton that's going to be jumping into the back line. We saw what Zoom was able to do in multiple team fights in the previous game, where he dashes and slashes into the back lines and just creates all this pressure. So having a Galio that can jump in on top of you can seriously create some threat with that, but Renekton is still not a primary engage mechanism. His slice has a very limited range, often needs him to have something else to dash through first so he gets the dice on top of it. We'll see how both teams complement themselves in the second half of the draft. Both teams still needing some primary engage here. You would hope. They, of course, do have Lillia and Zoe on either side, so either side can go fishing for a Trouble Bubble or a Swirl Seed, but I would prefer more of a trigger pull than that.
And I mean, the thing is, you can also use the Renekton kind of for flanks, and then also off of that. Either way, this is already better setup. Even the Lillia with a Q flash in the backline, as we saw Kanavi pulling off in some of those big fights at the end of the game, that being followed up by a Galio ultimate landing on top of you, you all go into a sleep, into a taunt, that can be game over. But it is critical that there's not parity in the picks right now. There's not marksman bans coming out from Suning, I think they are feeling like if both teams aren't banning it out, you're not going to be able to limit the pool enough to really make a difference. So instead, they're targeting the supports for now, taking out the Bard, TK banned away on that other side. This is already a very heavy CC style composition from JDG. And if you get your wish and we get that hard engaged support, you know, something like Leona, guess what's also good in that? Tom Kench. So very intelligent ban here from JDG, both with what they have and with what we're assuming they may want to build towards.
Caitlyn banned away by Suning here yet again. They banned it in game number 1. In game number 2, they will keep that habit. Now, one important difference that Suning has made in this draft is they're still waiting on picking that top laner. Last time around, as soon as they saw the Renekton, they're like, okay, we'll play Gangplank into it, no worries. This time around, waiting to see a little bit more. And yeah, hey, it's mid and AD carry traded for mid and AD carry of both sides. So let's see how Suning wants to adapt. You don't get any more information. You got to make these next 2 picks based on what we're already seeing here for JDG. And then that last pick will show up for them.
And I want to see, are we going to get a spicy counterpick top lane?
Well,
because
we got the Leona.
We have seen in the LPL some people going towards Quinn into Renekton as a matchup that you can play very heavily towards, and that it's very difficult for Renekton to do anything in, especially when you do have that cleanse Quinn, as people like to go to. So that could be an option if they want to go for a kind of more risky style counterpick. The Gangplank did work well, though. We have to remember, Ben was getting trashed in the early game by Zoom. You know, he was down 40 CS at one point fairly early on. He did have a very strong game from then on, but the early laning phase was definitely not in his favor. And we saw that somewhat pouring over into the jungle, where the lanes for Suning were on the back foot. They were getting pushed in. And as a result, it was Kanavi who was actually getting a lot more farm. He was also very far ahead of SofM. So now that some of these roles have been reversed, that we have the Leona, we have the Jhin, we have the Zoe over on the Suning side, perhaps SofM can get a bit more of an edge in that jungle. If he can have that Galio locked down under his turret by Angel, he can maybe get priority to move around, try to take away some of these camps from Kanavi, or at the very least protect his own camps and keep it closer to parity, because that was really a big part of the early stage for JDG in game number 1.
That's one of the things that I really wanted to look at too, is just how far behind that Graves fell. When Lillia was level 8, Graves was still level 6 and had to take 2 camps to be able to catch up. It felt like Lillia was always playing on the Graves side of the map, and SofM's just like, well, I don't even own my own jungle, how can I go take his? And it felt suffocating. Everybody that's ever played jungle has been in a game like that before, where it just feels like the enemy has 2 halves of the map and you just get to sit there and hope that there's something when you walk up to one of your camps and farm. Not quite that bad, of course, but still a game where it felt like he was never in the driver's seat. But we're in here yet again. It is fleet footwork once more on the Graves. Everything looks pretty par for the course across the summoner spells here. A change from last game. Remember, we saw Angel play the Galio. He was playing Predator, needed that to try to reach the backline. This time around, Yagao will be using the summoner spellbook instead.
And you can actually note that LokeN, I believe, is starting Boots 4-pot. So this is something he did last game as well. We may see a flash forced out here if he can land the seat. Oh, that sidestep!
That was so good, man!
It broke his ankles!
Joke him!
You know what I would have wanted to see, though, is Angel actually back up, do a max range sleep into that little corridor. Because if you just block his escape path, then he probably has to flash.
He has to, yeah. You can't step on the pool, and you can't wait it.
They got the Ignite out, though, and that was really clean from LvMao. Really, really fancy feat there to be able to avoid it. Nicely done by him. But yeah, it's Boots 4-pot start for LokeN, both games on Jhin, and now on the other side of the matchup, he's doing it as well. We are seeing more of these in matches where people feel like they could be on the receiving end of a lot of poke. Keeps you very healthy in lane. It's a lot more sustained than a Doran's Blade is going to be. Of course, the Doran's Blade has lasting value, where those potions really do not. But it is interesting to see that's just kind of the start he's most comfortable with. I'd also say we didn't get to talk about the support Sett, but support Sett was actually, for me, that along with the mid lane Sett was 7-2 in group stage. You know, this was a really, really successful pick. Had incredibly high impact, and LvMao is one of the greatest support Setts at this tournament. So I'm excited to see how he can perform, if he can make those plays come teamfight time.
And I think one of the big reasons behind a scoreline like 7-2 that does have such an incredible win rate is the fact that it's not a general pick. It's not something that you pick into any matchup. Usually you're not seeing people just say, yeah, sure, Sett mid, why not? It's one of those things that you generally have a plan in store for it, and it needs to slot into the current draft well, which means that it's never being picked into those situations where it's like, oh, well, he's stuck. He doesn't get to do anything, right?
Exactly. And I also think it's additionally, only people who are really good at Sett support are actually playing Sett support. You know, it's not just one of these kind of generic picks that everyone is playing. It's so much about the playmaking, and if you really can't make it happen with this pick, if you can't find the flanks, if you can't make those roams happen, the pick becomes very low value compared to a lot of the other traditional engaged supports like Nautilus, like Leona. So I think that's part of the reason too. But I am excited to see how this does go, both in the LCK and in the LPL. Sett was very high priority, so we're going to see, I think, a pretty impressive game likely from LvMao.
SofM clearing through the jungle with a slight camp lead over Kanavi, but they're both arriving towards the bottom side, and Kanavi is here much more quickly. Flash away from huanfeng, keeping himself safe from the engage of LvMao, but that's Flash on a champion that has no inbuilt mobility, so they could return here soon. Now, SofM does have Scuttle Crab Prio because Kanavi went down into the bottom lane, so that means this crab will be secured by Suning, and Kanavi goes back to farm his default camps in his jungle instead. Now, Angel going for the Trouble Bubble onto the Galio, but a good buffer of the movement. Graves just fires off the smoke canister to pop the sleep for the extra damage, but there's no playmaking there. Speaking of playmaking, bottom side, it's LokeN eating a bunch of damage, but using the cleanse gets him away and means SwordArt is just as hurt.
Yeah, and that was really good stacking there from SwordArt. He lands a stun, waits till it's cleansed, then ignites immediately after, because otherwise they can both be cleansed by that same spell.
Yeah.
The fact that Kanavi actually went for that gank, it didn't work out, meant he got pushed off the bottom scuttle, but more importantly, we saw SofM running through, and that meant that SofM actually got topside scuttle as well. As we see again, LvMao popping the Ignite. That is for the Nimbus Cloak proc for the additional move speed, trying to get in there and take down huanfeng, but he does have his heal as the response. And things already looking quite good for them on this bottom side. They've already taxed all 4 potions out of the MF. They have 4 summoners, but they've got to be careful about the return ganks because Yagao is missing. He is returning now to mid lane, but Lillia is down here too.
Could have been a 4-man play. huanfeng with no summoner spells, no mana, half HP.
Ooh,
this is a very vulnerable Jhin. SofM showing up, we're getting a 3v3. LvMao running away, trying to disengage. SwordArt with the follow. LvMao tanks some damage, Kanavi does too. Redemption had showed up from the Zoe, but Angel is here. Remember, LvMao doesn't have a way out this time, and that means first blood over to Angel Zoe.
Really nicely done on the roam there. Yagao had to return to mid lane, and then Angel had a timer to move. Finds that kill. So much pressure from both sides down towards this bottom lane. Continued efforts, and it is Suning that comes out on top. This was a pretty dicey back and forth fight here, as both sides, you know, we're low on health, we're out of resources, so that first kill can be very critical in a game like this.
It's a game of chicken, is what it is. Both sides are just driving straight at each other, 80 miles per hour. Who's going to swerve first?
No cowards here.
No, absolutely not. Somebody eventually just gets run off the road. And huanfeng on the Jhin, looking vulnerable for so long, it ends up just baiting in the rest of the team to show up, and LvMao pays the price. Top side, you can see Bin once again getting jumped on by Zoom up here. That CS lead starting to build in a similar way that we saw in Game 1. Zoom seems very well versed in this matchup, knowing how to deal with the Gangplank and get the edge in these trades. Ninja Tabby first item means he's able to close the gap on the Gangplank, negate some of that advantage the champion would have by just staying back and spamming Qs. So I expect Zoom to pretty much play this like we saw previously.
And Graves is a jungler, right? So if you can go tabbies against GP Graves, you're feeling really good. Oh, yeah. But they actually spotted them on this invade, and they're looking for a collapse. Everyone is here.
Oh, but Zoom has joined the fight, and Angel could still be in some dire straits. He tries to get away. He uses the flash. Angel is disengaged for now, but Bin's coming around from the top side. LvMao is also here. Gangplank ulti summoned up. Zoom walking away. Uses that Q to try to keep himself healed up. Over the wall comes Angel. Zoom's taken low. Zoom's taken down. Bin disengaging here once more. Trouble bubble over the wall, but SwordArt is still in a bad spot. LvMao's getting himself away. Here comes the swirl seed. SwordArt stays alive. SwordArt finally drops. Angel looking to provide some cover fire over the wall. Gets right back over in time, and now the pickup kill on to SofM. The double kill for Kanavi.
What a close fight. Skirmishes on both sides there. SofM trying to take down multiple members. Still had the flash. I wonder if he could have flashed some of that CC at the end to try to turn that around because there was such low health bars. Here's the initial play, the stolen flash from Angel, getting him out, and then Zoom is left with no flash and getting collapsed on. And then look at the top side of your screen. SofM waiting it out, buying time, goes over the wall. He's able to heal back up a bit and re-enter the fight as Bin gets out after the kill onto Zoom. And this is where you're thinking, all right, this could actually go pretty heavily in the favor of Suning, because SofM is walking in here very high on health, but Angel over the wall is not able to find any damage with that Paddle Star. And that Paddle Star would have killed anyone that it hits. And then we see SofM getting locked up, doesn't get the flash off, and does go down. So game of inches here, and this is really top level LPL teams at work. This is the kind of stuff that you'll see them go for because they have supreme confidence in their ability to outplay, in their ability to take these fights that look so dicey and execute on them. And with teams like JDG and Top especially, they go for these plays and you're like, that's a 50-50. And then they win it 10 games in a row and you're like, you're just that good, okay.
That's a 50-50, but it's a trick coin. Every single time it comes up heads, and man, I just love watching this kind of aggressive gameplay, like playing around a 50-50, playing around a 51-49. It makes League of Legends just the most exciting that it can be.
And it's cool because it's like, you think it's 50-50, but it's not because they're just that good, right? Like, they are seeing it differently. They are believing in their ability to execute. And Bin now locked down.
Oh, Bin, you got to get out of there, man, but I don't think it's happening. He buys as much time as he can, but they make sure they put the kill onto Zoom, giving Renekton as much of an edge in the matchup as they can. And meanwhile, JDG has once again secured a Rift Herald. They are 3 for 3 of those in this series.
No Bard here.
Coming into this series, Rift Herald was the only one of the neutral objectives of Rift Herald, Dragon, and Baron that JDG had a better control rate of in groups compared to Suning. They get 54% of their Rift Heralds in group stage, and so far they've got 100 here in this series. Flash over the wall, LvMao makes sure he doesn't get caught out as Suning moves up to collapse. The turret is still alive. The Leona ulti summoned up. Here comes the engage from SwordArt, but they got to be careful. Not everybody's here just yet.
Here's
Wallmaker from LvMao's trying to get him away. They do manage to grab the first kill, but what else can they get here? They had already lost the first turret. They need to find something else. Zoom gets hit by 2 shots, dodges the third, tries to get away from the fourth, but huanfeng has the damage, and the shutdown will also go over to Bin, who picks up another. It is 5-3 now, and Suning finds a way to bite back.
Angel would have died to a stiff breeze at the end of that fight, but he just walks out. I don't even know how much health that guy had.
Not even close.
He's got one more health than he needed. Let's just leave it at that, right? So Angel able to walk out. Suning, again, going for that fight, able to even out the gold on what was a lost fight into Herald. It is still JDG taking this first turret here. There was no Bard for SwordArt to actually deny it as he did multiple times last game. We see this engage, sidestep from SofM, dodging out on so much of that and getting tremendous amounts of damage. Then huanfeng arriving first to the scene. He has the Jhin ultimate on the chase, really hard to both run away from your opponents and actually dodge out on a lot of this. You can see the turnaround ultimate from LokeN just barely does not kill Angel. I'm not exaggerating when I say if MF had 1 or 2 more AD, you probably kill off the Zoe there. So that is always frustrating because it can feel like those plays can snowball into the next one where you barely don't kill in the first play and then you don't barely kill in the second play and you're telling yourself, well, if I just had that extra longsword from that previous kill, he would have died this time. That's the difference in the amount of AD that would have killed the Zoe is the difference between an adaptive force rune or an attack speed rune. Yep. That's all it is. It's incredibly minute as the first Drake of the game going to be taken here likely by Suning 11 minutes in. That is a slow first Drake. Last time around it was about 9 or 10, so even later here in game number 2, Suning Gaming and JDG dead even in gold 11 minutes into this one. Bin's Gangplank, after that counterattack they mounted in the top side, does have his Trinity Force completed, which will help him a lot in dealing with this Renekton. However, that turret was the first one to go. The Rift Herald usage, much better for JDG when Bard's not on the enemy team. So Bin's got to be careful with how and where he's farming. Exactly. He really does, but Angel in trouble here. Oh boy. Stasis tries to keep him alive long enough. Flashing away. Now they can bite back a little bit here, but Zoom shows up. He's in there, and Bin has to walk away. So each side has enough guys nearby to scare the other away, and nobody's dead. Yep, flash for flash. They do get that stopwatch off Angel, so that's pretty big as far as playmaking in this early game. Yagao does not have to burn his. Does cost them the Summoners, but nice attempt and counterpunch from those two teams. And you said it, I mean, the Bard was actually really big for SwordArt last game. He denied both the Rift Heralds. It wasn't just the first. They got nothing from it. And it was such a critical fight for Bin, because Bin had actually been falling very far behind. You know, prior to that top lane play, he was down 20 CS. He had just gotten killed off. You know, they lost their tower. So he needed something like that. And he does end up getting an 11-minute Triforce because he didn't make a pit stop for anything else. So, you know, he is now at a very comfortable spot, because even if you're behind, when you hit Triforce at an early time on GP, you're one-shotting the range minions with your barrels. You're starting to farm up those coins to upgrade the ultimate, and you really do get into a point where it's pretty hard to actually push in and punish you whatsoever.
Speaking of pushing in, LvMao once again pressuring enemy territory with these wards. I love how aggressively this guy likes to ward on support, always making sure they're looking for opportunities to make plays when they've got a lead somewhere. Bot lane Prio, invade the jungle, look for a play. Now in the mid lane, they're looking for a play here. SwordArt tries to disengage. Leona is tanky, but not tanky enough to get out of the showstopper. It's LokeN picking up 300.
Yeah, and as soon as you see that Sett is behind you like that, there's no point in even flashing as SwordArt. You're just going to get dunked right back into the team either way. So LvMao finding the angle to punish the roam there from SwordArt. Both of these supports are really the type of players to try to match the roam. You know, it's not necessarily the type of player who's going to try to zone off the AD. They're comfortable to leave LokeN and huanfeng farming 1v1 to match those roams, to look to scrap, and to constantly try to find advantages around the mid lane for their team.
And that's the kind of support play that's exciting to see. That's the kind of support play that can dictate the game better. As fun as it is to sit in the brush and watch your buddy farm the minions and then give him the thumbs up emote every couple of minutes. No, it's terrible, but I'm trying to justify people who enjoy that, because we're not trying to judge here. I'm just trying to pump up the Chad style of supporting, where you roam around and look for some of that lockdown, look for some of those moves, and it's been really cool to see here between these two. But you can see up in the top right now, as turret plates have now evaporated, 5 versus 2. Of course, a lot of that is the Rift Herald difference. As SwordArt shows up, here's some of that playmaking I'm talking about. The damage comes through, and the shots are true. Yagao is there, but it's a little bit late. He only loses half his health bar and gets out. SofM taking the Gromp tax on his way out. Kanavi getting popped means the jungle is free picking.
I just want to take a moment to appreciate how clean that play was. SwordArt flashing over the wall, hits the Zenith Blade into a stun, perfectly overlaps with the ultimate, and huanfeng does not use his root until the ultimate is expiring, and Kanavi gets rooted immediately out of the ultimate. That was beautiful. And yes, Kanavi did not have his flash. Maybe he would have gone down either way, but that just shows the coordination, the combination coming through there from long range, having the confidence to land those skills, having the confidence that your teammate will be there to back you up. And that was really, really clean to punish Kanavi.
And is this not exemplary of what you mentioned in game number 1 as your problem with that draft from Suning? How you wanted to see better engage and more playmaking. You're not going to get the same level of chain CC and burst ability from Bard. SwordArt on the Leona has the ability to make so many plays here, as now Suning has decided to contest the Rift Herald. They don't want to give away this second one for free.
Oh,
Sleepy Trouble Bubble down onto LvMao. It's SofM taking over the Rift Herald, and now the engage is coming through, but SwordArt's in some trouble. The Haymaker finds him, and now Yagao has arrived to find the taunt onto 2 enemy players. They try to disengage it, but now they've got huanfeng coming in from the side. A very nice bullet time at the very edge of the sleep. Angels in a bad spot, but they may just turn it around. Good golly, Miss Molly. Everybody on JDG is seeing black and white, and Suning Gaming get the 8.
What a scrap 10-man fight around the Rift Herald. You gotta love it. And Suning, as huanfeng comes in from the side, it's the flanking Jhin of all things that helped clean it up after Bin, it looked like, landed a massive amount of damage to soften up JDG, who were piling forward, thinking that they had the edge, thinking that they were going to be the ones to win around that fight. Suning looking so good in this game, up 4,000 gold, 2 dragons to 0. They are crushing game number 2.
Suning Gaming striking back hard after that first game loss. And ooh, what is that, Mr. Azael? I do believe we have a second game of an Ocean Soul, which just makes it that much more fun, because you know these teams are going to fight over it so
Slap on some sunscreen,
much.
get the picnic, get the sunglasses, because we're going to have some team fights.
Somebody forgot their pool party, Leona. Shame on you, SwordArt, for not being able to see in the future, but you know what? I think the man's been making enough plays throughout this game. We're going to forgive him. So mid lane tier 1 turret falls. Suning's going to put more money in their pockets. Let's take another look at how this top lane Rift Herald fight went.
Yep, SofM grabs that. SwordArt getting taken out immediately, and you have the flank here. Multi-man taunt there from Yagao, and you're like, uh-oh, Suning, you are doomed. Yep. But huanfeng on the side here, and then look at the damage coming across that barrel from Bin.
So much.
Right as he's entering the Drowsy and gonna get slept, that lit them up, and then SofM was over on the side. He's able to go over the wall, rejoin the fight. huanfeng is on the side, flanking on this Jhin, and yes, it looks pretty silly until you see that barrel land, and then all of a sudden the Renekton has like one hit, right? And you can clean that fight up. And that is a really gutsy move from him to position himself like that, and it works out brilliantly.
Dive maybe onto Zoom up here. They get the dominus out of Renekton, so no reason to continue trying to dive right now. It'll just make things look a little bit sloppy.
Yeah.
But in that last team fight, just one more thing about it, as might not even have time to do one more thing about it. But yeah, the bullet time onto Angel doesn't manage to wake you up from the sleep, so he was doing so much with it, but again, just not enough.
TP coming in, we're scrapping
TP
flowers.
shows up, it's not done. Sleepy Trouble Bubble immediately down onto Yagao's Galio. He goes into stasis, trying to buy himself some time. A beautiful interrupt. Meanwhile, back up in the top lane, it's a double kill for LokeN. 2 for 1 overall, but the fights were both lopsided with expected outcomes in either one. LvMao now running away. Swirl Seed covering his retreat. Angel is still here. Sleepy Trouble Bubble will not find Zoom.
19 kills, 18 minutes.
I love the
It's
LPL
a beautiful
so
thing
much.
here.
This is the kind of League of Legends that Worlds is all about, man. I love this League of Legends. huanfeng on the top lane. The final tier 1 turret will fall. That's 3 turrets now for Suning.
Yeah, they get it in the end. You know, it started out as just a little bit of initial pressure, trying to attack some resources from Zoom, but, you know, he hit Graves with the hard counter of standing behind something, so Graves could no longer hit him when he went behind the tower. But as the rest of the teams are coming up, they look for the flank, and it's a deep teleport flank from Galio on the other side that we saw on screen, but Kanavi able to land the multi-man sleep, able to set them up for the LvMao dunk there, grabbing 2 kills over onto LokeN, who was having to deal with, again, a barrel from Bin. The GP ultimate dropped on his head as he's going into that ultimate, because if you want to keep channeling, you've got to tank that.
Yeah.
And that's going to get even more difficult. I'm not sure if Bin actually has the Death Starter upgrade, but the true damage at the center is actually especially good against champions like MF and Xerath, who have these long-channeled ultimates that are, you know, really important parts of their kit as far as damage goes. You know, you pop that, GP immediately, point and click, drops that on your head, you get the bonus true damage, and a lot of times you can actually force the MF or the Xerath to just straight up cancel their ultimate and take a lot of damage, so it can be pretty win-win.
Now, this is still a 5,000 gold game for Suning, despite the fact that JDG won that last fight in terms of number of champions traded. Both AD carries this game having really big impact in what they're doing. 4-1-0 on that misfortune after picking up the double. 3-0-6, 75% kill participation, deathless so far for huanfeng's Jhin. You mentioned earlier how crazy it is to see the Jhin come around on the flank. That's not where you expect that champion to be, but the man made it happen. And let's check back in with what we were talking about at the beginning of the game back in the draft. Can SofM have a better game this time around on the Graves versus the Lillia? 47 CS lead with a 5-1-4 scoreline? I'd say so.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
He's looking really good, and he has the Zeal, probably going to pick up a PD for himself, a little bit of a defensive option. Ruby Crystal could be towards a late Black Cleaver, you know, to help set up for that. And they find Zoom up on this top side, does have Flash, so we'll have to use it.
Well, he gets away at least. If he doesn't have Flash there, they know they have the follow-up. SwordArt is tanky enough to facilitate the dive and guarantee that they kill him with all that firepower. Kanavi's just trying to farm. He's in the same spot SwordArt was in the previous game.
To set up a flank here.
SofM was in the previous game. Oh. Excuse me. LvMao clears out the ward. Always got to be aware of where that Sett is. If he can come around from a flank angle and find a showstopper, things can change pretty rapidly. Drake in 10 seconds. Suning, if they get this, will put themselves on Soul Point. Remember last game when JDG was at Soul Point? Suning was able to stop it. Kanavi in a bad spot, forced to flash over the wall. That's a big summoner spell to not have available. Trouble Bubble over the wall, but now it's SofM in a really bad place. He gets away, but he's running right into the waiting arms of Zoom. The Galio's coming around from behind, but the fight is already lost. JDG, they tried to play offensively, but they split their forces, and
Can they chase for a penta here?
Everybody dig an extra grave, put a fourth one in the dirt. Ben grabs the kill. Here's your curtain call. Take a bow. Yagao's getting the hell out of town. They don't even need to kill him. They got what they came for. Fight's over. Take your drink.
There's so much I want to talk about. This was actually insane. There's 3 blue orbs on the side of Suning, and we saw LvMao setting up in flank positions multiple times in a row, warded out by the long-range blue trinket. He gets in the brush over by the red buff, immediate blue ward. He's in that side brush over in the river, immediate blue ward. They are anticipating everywhere that he wants to go, and that is what started off this fight. It looks like it could go pretty well for JDG, as you do see, Zoom coming in from that bottom side, cleaning up the jungler, but the rest of Suning is coming in from that top side of your screen, crushing through the fight. The Jhin is so strong already. People talk a lot about how Jhin cannot deal well with tanks. There's no true tanks on this team, and he is playing from so far ahead. Jhin has these execute mechanics built into his kit with that 4th hit, being able to use the ultimate that does more damage on low health targets as well, and he is snowballed so far ahead now, already on that big ticket 3 items at 23 minutes. He can do really an incredible amount of damage. Like, if you get 1 4th shot plus a Q on someone like Kanavi, like, they just have to leave the fight now, right? It's actually insane how much you do on squishy targets at this point in the game.
And look at Suning's jungler and support duo. Flexing those muscles in the enemy jungle, laying down that control ward line, cutting off the map yet again. LokeN is in a bad spot. Gets tagged by the slow. Collateral damage doesn't find the kill, but the barrel does. Ben is there for the follow-up. They find the damage they need. huanfeng goes godlike. Where's Kanavi at? It's going to be a whole lot of fun here, my friends. Bambi's out of the picture once more. Yagao is here, but 1 versus 3 is not where Galio needs to find himself. Justice Punch away, keeps alive yet again. Ben trying to chase this up, but where is that?
What?
It's Jhin!
He's in the base!
Base! Behind the curtains with the curtain call! Everybody is done, man. huanfeng is legendary. They pick up the last 2 kills. I tell you what, of all the places that thing could have opened up from, next to the rock in the red team base was not where I was expecting. That was a beautiful subversion of my expectations. Jhin should have wrote Season 8 of Game of Thrones. It wouldn't have sucked. But Suning Gaming is now taking down that mid lane inhibitor.
It's Secret Agent, man. huanfeng snuck into their base, bribed the guards, and ulted the team behind him. I have never in my life seen a flanking Jhin ult with towers still up in the base from inside the enemy's base. That was incredible. They are just chasing him down, and it's just not fair. 1 or 2 hits from the Jhin is killing off everybody. And look at this man. He's just sneaking right past the minions and finds the angle. Everyone else is dead, so it actually makes perfect sense. There's no one there to punish him inside the base. How do you escape from this? You are now surrounded on all sides. You can't run from anywhere. This is the most big brain Jhin ultimate I have ever seen. huanfeng, you beautiful man, you.
huanfeng is putting on a show with Jhin. This is literally the role player Jhin game.
This is Jhin.
Yeah, this is the role player Jhin game where you set up the most theatrical possible performance to show off what you can do. Incredible stuff from Suning this time around. 10,000 gold lead. More than that, actually, if we want to be really, really specific about it, but we don't need to be, because the lead can simply just be described as catastrophic from JDG's point of view. This team is running out of options. They are running out of plays. They are running out of hope, because Suning Gaming controls the entirety of Summoner's Rift.
I mean, it's got to be some sort of a miracle flank. Find these backliners and kill them off, because if you do not, they are definitely going to make no mistake about killing you.
Yagao Justice punches away. It doesn't get
the flank here is Zoom and Kanavi.
But now around the side, Kanavi goes for the swirl seed, but it does not find huanfeng. JDG's in a spot where they might be able to make some sort of a move. They're going after the Jhin. They're looking to make them plays, but Ben is able to get huanfeng out of there, and now huanfeng is still alive. Escaping the haymaker. The man's making some plays. He goes legendary as they look to end the game here. Yagao will try to hobble out. He's done it in the past couple of fights, but it won't do anything anymore. Kanavi's the last one to go. 5 dead for nothing. Just walk through the enemy base. Take whatever you please. Suning Gaming, we've got ourselves a series as they take down JDG and secure the win in Game 2.
And what a way to do it. 26-minute win over JDG, the favorites here. And 26 kills from Suning alone in this game. They were knocking down JDG like fish in a barrel.
The trade of the Zoe and the Jhin for the Galio and the Misfortune definitely went the way of Suning. And I think if you're JDG, you're going to remember this Jhin pick because huanfeng's presence on this champion was undeniable.
And he was honestly, even in the loss in game 1, he was really standing out in his team fighting on the MF for me. Played a beautiful game number 1, really was looking good. I think LokeN was really strong in that one too. But in game 2, huanfeng was really taking over. This was an incredible Jhin game from him. The coordination on the engages with him alongside SwordArt, the creativity on angles and the confidence to execute on plays, flanking at the Rift Herald, ulting the team from inside their base with the towers still up. If that's not a beautiful thing to see, I don't know what is.
It was incredible stuff, my friend. And now with the series tied up 1-1, we're going to be waiting for game 3, but only a short wait, don't you worry. In the meantime, listen to the Takeover Anthem remix on Spotify's official League of Legends playlist during the Spotify Song Break. This is the first time we play this on air, so let's check out that new version. It's on everyone's mind. 来时候，哪怕再迟也不想以后，就在这时放肆的斗。I got the heart. Top again, no wood, below the crown, but count us higher than a mountain, and we be up here for the long run, strapping for a long one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. 在以后，除了是傻子，还有其他吗？我左右，节拍琵琶在时间滴答着，还不够。你的固执让未来时候，哪怕再迟也不想以后，就在这时放肆的斗。I got the heart of a lion, I know the harder you climb, the harder you fall. I'm at the top of the mountain, too many bodies to count. I've been through it all. I had to weather the storm to get to the level I'm on. That's how the legend was born. All of my enemies already dead. I'm going, I'm ready for war. We the top again, no wood. Below the crown, but count us higher than a mountain. And we be up here for the long run, strapping for a long one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger. Everything I carry up on my back, you should paint it up with a target.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Zone, and I'm just happy we're going to get more than 3 games today. Vedius, you had an apt comparison to what we saw yesterday and what we've already seen
so
today.
yesterday was
Lay it
like
on
a
us.
ballet, okay? It was calm, it was calculated, it was sophisticated. But then I imagine that the LPL like kicked the door down, they've got the fanfare going with the trumpets, they brought fireworks to the show, and they've turned the ballet into a circus, and it's great, and I love it. It is so much fun to watch, especially when we have such talented players, such talented top laners and junglers specifically that have made this game so exciting to watch.
I don't disagree with you, but I do want to pump the brakes a little bit because I feel like while I'm all for the circus, I'm all for the fiesta, the party hats are on, it does do a disservice where the audience then thinks that what we saw in this Best of 5 is somehow lesser than what we saw in yesterday's Best of 5. Just because it's like, here's the thing, audience.
From an entertainment perspective, Frost.
When you face a team that fights you, you don't get to call a timeout and be like, actually, let's play a macro game. If they fight you, you have to fight. You have to get down and dirty. And it doesn't make it any less powerful League of Legends. What you're seeing, this is creme de la creme. This is top shelf. This is that good shit.
Oh God, she dropped it. She dropped the S-bomb. Let's move on. Let's start maybe with Suning's Mercedes drive to victory. The ace around the Herald, 16 minutes in, very early on. And although you thought it was going to get some more teamfights, they were really far ahead after this play.
I feel as though this was the play that kind of swung the game heavily in Suning's favor because for the vast majority of it, it was very close back and forth. But I actually think initially JDG had the better setup. It looked like they were in the better position, especially with this beautiful sleep. But then the barrel came through that was actually so clutch and doing enough damage to allow SofM to clean up on the backline. And like, it was one of those things that we've been talking about a lot and something that you and Lyric spoke extensively about on the last analyst desk, which was that when you look at Suning, a lot of the ways in which we expect them to beat JDG is through the outplay. And I think that when you look at teamfights like this, you get to see so many of those beautiful outplays, the positioning of the barrel, the uses of the Graves ultimate, like the Jhin flanks, like what were those?
What was that? That was so cool.
Like the outplay potential of the Suning roster just kind of ties everything that we've been talking about all day. This talent is young, well, it's a combination of young and veteran talent where the ceiling isn't really known, but this game I think you really get to see what that ceiling looks like.
And let me then ask the question to Frost, because Frost actually called this at the beginning of the day. She said it's going to come down to team fights, and you thought Suning is perfectly capable of running away with an early game lead, but it has to be big enough so that they don't get outplayed in the team fights by a JDG who should be superior in playing them to a T. Has this changed your perspective, or has it strengthened it in that you think, well, if JDG doesn't let this happen again?
I think it's the same rule will always apply, which is Suning are on a clock. They cannot enter a 5v5 on even footing because the safe bet is always that JDG will pick the right call most of the time, whereas Suning is relying on those outplays. I think what we're going to see an adjustment to is the draft, specifically the priority on Zoe. Zoe is a champion that has such high agency. A single bubble can change the course of a team fight. And what you see when Suning will be at their best is when everyone is on a champion that has individual agency, where it does come down to those outplays. Does a massive barrel hit? Does a Graves ultimate just destroy something? Did Zoe catch someone out? And then their ability to snowball off of that, whereas JDG will almost always draft for team fight cohesion. They will sacrifice lane dominance and lane power so that their composition makes sense stylistically. So when Suning win, they'll win hard.
Yeah.
They will snowball out of control. But JDG just need to slow everything down, enter the 20-minute mark, 5v5 even, and it should be like clean cut and done.
Talk to me about the trading of the mid laners we saw here. You know, in the first game, we had the Galio versus the Zoe, and Yagao really popped off. Then the second game, he goes, you can have the Zoe, I'll play the Galio and beat you with it. Hold the phone. That's not what happened. What do we make of kind of the mid laners in this synergy of teams, because we talked a lot about how they do go more for utility type champions in the games we've seen in groups so far. How is this going to influence the matchup going forward?
Well, I think what's interesting is that whenever we look at best of fives, you get in-series metas developing.
Yeah.
And what we've already started to see is that, okay, Renekton versus Gangplank, that's one match where we look at, is this matchup going to keep continuing? Will we continue to see the blind pick Renekton? Will we continue to see Bin being allowed to play the Gangplank as a response? On top of that, the Zoe Galio matchup, as you've already talked about. I think that Zoe, as Frost makes a great point of, the amount of agency it's currently giving in this series, especially when it comes to setup in the team fights, because a lot of the fights happen like well before the fights actually start, right? Who has the better vision? Who's in the better position? And that Zoe bubble does so much in terms of how the execution comes through. So I think that Zoe is either going to start getting banned, it might even start getting first picked, and then it comes into, well, what can counter Zoe?
I also think it's really interesting because these teams have so much history with each other. Like, we talked about how Suning and JDG have never really played a best of 5, but they scrim, they know each other. It doesn't just become a best of 5 of what's best for JDG. It becomes a best of 5 of what is the best iteration of Suning versus JDG. What is the best iteration of JDG versus Suning? And these relationships are in the draft. You know, Zoe will be a high priority because Angel and Yagao are incredible Zoe players. Bard is now getting picked and then was banned. And he will continue to be a high contested pick because LvMao is one of the best Bard players in the LPL. And SwordArt is also phenomenal at that champion. And that's what's really cool when you have brackets. I know everyone's like, oh, I wish we got more LCK versus LPL matchup. No, this is what's cool when you have all of teams that know each other on one side of the bracket, because you get to see something that is really incredible at the highest level of play, which is how well these teams know each other, and not just a tournament meta, but a JD versus Suning meta.
And this is why we were hyping up the fact that we would see the LPL side of the bracket today, because this is what was promised, right? How much staying power do you think Suning have in this series now that you've seen this, Vedius? What do you expect to happen?
Well, I'm not surprised that people like Lyric predicted the 5 games. I think that whenever we see 2 LPL teams face off against each other, you know it's going to be chaotic and back and forth, and they're going to adapt fast. They're going to adapt quick, and I expect JDG coming into this next game will pivot their draft pretty dramatically, and we're going to see a little bit more firepower coming out from them. So I'm expecting this to potentially go to 5, but for now, I'm sticking with my 3-1 prediction. I think JDG is going to figure Suning out and will hold.
Final note.
The one thing that I really want to say is I am starting to edge towards Suning. Like,
Ooh.
I do. So here's the thing.
Okay.
Because JDG beat Top in Spring, and then Top sprinted past them. Suning can do the same thing because they do have, I think, a higher ceiling individually, pound for pound talent. And this is why this series is so important. This could be the day. Imagine if at Worlds, in your first quarterfinal, in your first go, you decide that, hey, we're now the second best team in the LPL. We'll see you in Spring, boys.
Oh, let's see.
Cool.
It's getting spicy. Time for a quick break. We'll catch our breath. Game 3 is coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.